When Love Was Never Mine. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 3. Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks. She knew that she and Ethan could never go back to how things were before. He had betrayed her and destroyed the Fordhams, and the Fordhams owed him his sister's life. Those debts could never be settled. Trying to resolve them would only serve to tighten the knots of their relationship, suffocating them and leading to an inevitable end. Ethan held her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his cheeks. Live, don't love me. Hate me instead. T betrayed you, I killed our child, and I can never turn back. She sensed his inner turmoil, but amidst that, she could feel the tenderness he still had for her like a calm oasis in a turbulent desert sandstorm. However, she knew that the oasis would soon be destroyed by the raging winds. Ethan left the room, leaving Olivia behind. Olivia knew that this was their final farewell. When Olivia headed out of the study, Madame Burgess was nowhere to be seen. The kind-hearted Madame Burgess had always believed their conflicts to be petty quarrels and had even attempted to mediate between them. In her eyes, Olivia was the singular and rightful Mrs. Miller, hence she was unaware of her grave mistake. Olivia laughed at herself. With Madame Burgess by her side, she never felt lonely in the spacious mansion. It wasn't until Madame Burgess left that Olivia was hit by the emptiness of the house and the tedium of life. The sky outside was already dark, and there was a pot of chowder Madame Burgess had made waiting in the kitchen. Olivia poured herself some into a bowl. The steam from the pot veiled her face, obscuring her features. Slowing eating, Olivia's expression was calm. She had found a solution to the exhausting game they were stuck in. Ethan, I will repay the debt my father owes you, she thought to herself. Instead of undergoing chemotherapy, she decided to enjoy the remaining days of her life. Having seen Ethan's pain and turmoil, she was certain that he would no longer be burdened by hatred and his conflicted feelings upon her death. For Ethan to have a better life, she would just have to give up her own. He would have the beloved wife and a child he had always longed for after she was gone. He would remain a legendary figure in Adenine. Aside from the fact that she would be gone, everything would be fine, and that would be wonderful. Olivia suddenly felt the chains binding her loosen, and she realized that she had liberated herself from her own constraints. That night, Ethan didn't return, and the Miller residence was as silent as death. The next morning, Olivia woke up early for the first time after confining herself to the room for so many days. The rest had greatly improved her spirits, and Madame Burgess had played a significant role in it too. Under Madame Burgess's care, Olivia appeared to be healthier. Perhaps the chemotherapy medication was working, as her stomach stopped hurting in the past few days. Olivia changed into appropriate attire and was about to open the door when she saw Brent standing outside with a cold, solemn expression. He respectfully greeted her, "Good morning, Mrs. Miller." Olivia smiled at him. "Good morning." Brent was taken aback. Ever since the argument, for the past 2 years, she was either exhausted or weeping with sorrow whenever he saw Olivia. It had been a long time since he had seen her smile like that. Brent couldn't bring himself to say what he wanted to say next, so Olivia took the initiative to do it. Olivia and Ethan couldn't avoid reality forever. Hence, Ethan had decided to completely give up on her. However, Olivia had also made her own decision. Olivia smiled gently at Erent and said, "I'm sorry, please tell Mr. Miller that I regret F." Brent couldn't understand them. At first, Ethan was determined to divorce, then it was Olivia. Now that Ethan agreed, Olivia changed her mind again. What game were they playing? If it were Kelvin, he would have started complaining long ago, but Brent's expression remained unchanged. With business-like composure, he answered, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Miller. I can't make the final decision. I hope that you will come with me. I won't make things difficult for you." "Let's go," Olivia answered. She had already anticipated that. Hence, she wrapped herself tightly in a scarf before following Brent out the door. Whenever they were about to get divorced, unexpected incidents would occur. This time, however, things went surprisingly smoothly. Even the snowstorm from a few days ago had stopped, and it was now sunny. After the snowstorm, the temperature remained low despite the bright sunshine. It melted the accumulated snow on the treetops, causing it to drip down from the branches. When Olivia arrived, Ethan was already waiting there. There was no one else in the hall but him. He was sitting cross-legged with his eyes half closed. He looked exhausted and was rubbing his temples. Ethan was weary, but sleep eluded him. When Olivia drew closer to him, she detected the faint scent of alcohol on him. Wasn't a drinker in the past, but now he always had to have alcohol at night. Inly, without any warning, two small hands landed on his temples, and with them came a familiar massage technique, the scent of hand cream. Opening his eyes, he said, "You're here." Olivia hummed back in response. Neither of them spoke further. It felt like time had turned back. In the past, she always soothed him when he was weary. After massaging him for a while, her hands were sore. Since she started chemotherapy, her health was not as good as it was before. As she couldn't lift her hands any longer, she took a rest. Ethan took out something from his briefcase and pushed it toward Olivia. "I have revised the divorce agreement. If you have any objections, please sign it." Olivia glanced at it. The divorce agreement she had drafted before only had one condition: she wanted $10 million in compensation. The current divorce agreement, on the other hand, was much more extensive. It amounted to $1 billion, part of which was made up of villas, cars, and real estate properties. She chuckled lightly. "Mr. Miller, you're really generous." Instead of looking at her, Ethan lowered his head to glance at his wristwatch. "It's what you deserve." Olivia didn't know what he had been thinking all night, but it was evident that he intended to completely separate himself from her. She couldn't call him heartless, as he was more sentimental than anyone she had ever known. She couldn't claim that he was in love with her either, as he had been ruthless to her. Olivia held the pen and crossed out those clauses and conditions. "Thank you for your consideration, Mr. Miller. As I said, I only need the $10 million. You've given me $5 million. What about the remaining $5 million? Ethan frowned in dissatisfaction as he looked at her. "Olivia, don't you know what's good for you?" However, Olivia smiled in return. 2.2 I'm not used to a luxurious life. Although these past 2 years have been tiring, they've also been quite fulfilling. Besides, I didn't bear you any children, so giving me only this much is not appropriate." Ethan was about to respond, but Olivia suddenly leaned over the table. She placed her hands on the table and leaned closer to him. $10 million, and I have one more condition. In the dark depths of his pupils, she could see the reflection of her gentle smile. With a raised eyebrow, he asked, "What is it?" Olivia's lips formed a stunning smile as she sweetly requested, "Ethan, I want you to keep me company for 3 months." The gravity of her smile almost sucked Ethan in, but his rationale quickly pulled him back to reality. He furrowed his brows. He had an unpleasant look on his face as he said, "What trick are you trying to pull, Olivia?" Olivia said seriously, "I'm not trying to pull anything. I'm telling you that I'm giving you 3 months. After that, you can marry Marina and have a million babbles with her for all I care." When that happened, her life would be at its end. She would find somewhere remote and live the rest of her life in peaceful solitude. Ethan saw the determination in her eyes. He felt like didn't understand Olivia anymore. He thought she was going to hate him, even after they talked it out. He did not expect her to be like this. Ethan coldly glared at her. "What if I say no? Then, I'll never sign the divorce papers." "I can wait." "Your girl and baby can't," Olivia said as she quirked an eyebrow. She had the usual taunting look on her face. "I'm giving you 3 months. We'll sign the divorce papers after then. After that, I'll leave Aldenvine and never come back." Ethan sneered. "I know you won't leave your father behind. She was about to die anyway. Why should she care about anyone else?" Olivia replied gently, "The doctor said the chances of my father waking up are very slim. It's not a bad idea for him to stay if he is going to still be in a coma. Maybe when she reached the end of her life, she would ask the hospital to do the same for Jeff and terminate his life support. If she went away first, no one would be there to help him handle his affairs. If Ethan were to one day lose his mind and throw her father's body into the sea, he would be mangled by the currents. She might not recognize him if she bumped into him in heaven. It was probably a better idea for them to leave the world together. At least the journey wouldn't be too lonely then. Ethan stayed silent. However, Marina interrupted the conversation. "Ethan, is it done?" Discussions of divorce had never reached a point of success. Marina couldn't sit and wait any longer, so she aired on taking matters into her own hands. This time, she brought her child with her to secure Ethan's heart. She couldn't let anything sway the discussion this time. She was carrying her daughter, an adorable little girl. She didn't look anything like Ethan, but she was a spitting image of Marina. When Olivia noticed the child, she was a little surprised. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. She felt like she couldn't breathe. If her baby survived, she would be as old as her daughter. She had lost her precious daughter, but Marina was lucky enough to have twins. The girl reached for Ethan. She gurgled, "Ah, Papa Carey." Ethan swiftly took the baby in his arms, and Marina stood beside him. She smiled gently at Olivia. "Miss Fordham, Ethan does not love you anymore. Why are you even still here?" She glanced at the divorce papers. A surprised look flashed across her face briefly, but she quickly regained her composure. "Ethan has been more than kind to you. If I were you, I would learn my place." Don't be greedy. You might lose more than you gain if you do. Olivia looked at her coldly, and she rudely retorted, that's why you never will be me. This had a double meaning. However, Marina forcefully kept her smile since Ethan was there. Olivia was fiddling with the pen in her hand. Ethan, this is my condition. If you don't agree, we can drag this on. We'll see who lasts the longest. 1 month. Ethan looked up, his eyes locked on her face. Olivia tried to negotiate but received his heartless rejection instead. That's my final offer. There was no room for negotiation. Okay, 1 month it is. After counting the days she had left, Olivia figured it might be a good idea to have a companion to celebrate the coming year. Olivia, as she always did, extended her pinky finger and said, deal. Ethan was stunned. Marina breathily rubbed herself against him and whined, Ethan. Ethan didn't look at her. He slowly extended his finger, hooked it with Olivia's, and said, no take-backs. They had finally come to an agreement. This was the only method Olivia could devise. He would stay with her for a month, then she would return his freedom to him. Marina groaned, Ethan, I'm not rushing you to get a divorce or anything, but think about our baby. Olivia's stomach churned as she looked at how childish Marina was being. I'm going to the bathroom. Ethan was great at everything, except choosing people he wanted to keep in his life. Although Marina was his neighbor, he didn't need to be with someone like her to torture himself. She lost respect for him for even standing next to Marina. Or was Ethan a sucker for this kind of behavior? Olivia thought about this on her way to the bathroom. Men just don't say no to a bratty woman, do they? Every time she was coy and flirty like that in the past, he would grab the moon and stars for her. 1 month. Okay, he was willing to give her 1 month. Olivia just squatted by the toilet bowl and vomited her guts out. She shouldn't have jinxed herself. She was just thinking that morning that her stomach had been doing much better in the past few days. Now, she was back to square one. That's a big patch of fresh red blood that came with it. No matter how many times she looked at it, it chilled her to the dark omen. She forced herself to make peace with it. She wasn't going to suffer for long. Just as she was about to leave after freshening up, she felt someone tug the bottom of her fur coat. Olivia looked down and saw a little boy that looked a lot like Ethan. It was his son. He had one hand on the sink while another held onto the corner of her coat. There was drool in his mouth as he babbled incoherently, Mama. She was supposed to hate him. He was the product of Ethan and Marina, after all. However, she had been a mother, even if it was for a short time. She couldn't hate a child. Olivia lowered herself and poked the tip of the boy's nose with her finger. She said fiercely, Hey little troublemaker, don't you dare become like your father when you grow up. You better give your woman the world and worship the ground she walks on. Little Connor stretched out both his arms and rushed toward Olivia. Carrie. Olivia pulled a face to scare him. I'm a bad lady. I might kidnap you and sell you. Doesn't that scare you? Connor laughed. He was far from scared. His nanny quickly rushed over with a baby stroller. She was very anxious as she said, my dear. You gave me such a scare. Why are you in the women's bathroom? The moment she saw Olivia, she quickly dragged the boy over. For a second, Connor was still giggling, but in the next, he looked hurt. "Mama, Carrie. Young master, don't call her that. She is not your mother." Then, the nanny picked the boy up and hurriedly left. Olivia looked at his cute and chubby face, and her eyes filled with tears. Her heart ached. She stared at the chubby hand waving her goodbye as he babbled, calling for her, "All, Mama." Olivia was standing by the entrance of the ladies' bathroom. By the time Brent found her, her face was lousy. Olivia was beautiful. Even when she wept, she looked alluring. It was heart-aching to see someone so beautiful and so sad. Brent said to her softly, "Madam, Mr. Miller is waiting for you." Olivia snapped back to reality. She reached out to wipe the tears from her face. She suddenly started sobbing again. "Oh, Brent. I must look awful, don't I?" Brent had worked for Ethan for many years. He was no stranger to how vibrant his wife was. In the short span of 2 years, he gathered that she was like a withering flower, yet to witness her full bloom, and perhaps may never get to. "Don't worry. You still look beautiful. No one is as beautiful as you are." Brent handed her a tissue. Olivia wiped her tears as she said, "I used to hate people who cry easily. I'm slowly becoming someone I hate. I've become someone I swore never to be." Brent looked at her sorrowful eyes and responded with something that shocked even himself. "Then, why are you still holding on?" He knew that Ethan had spent the whole night thinking and changing the terms of the divorce. It was obvious that he was ready to let go. The Fordhams were bankrupt. Jeff, who was responsible for it, was barely alive. He had tormented and hurt Olivia for 2 years. He was planning to let her go. Hence, she was given a generous alimony to ensure her a comfortable life for the rest of her days. Leaving was the wise decision now. Olivia knew when to back down. Did she think that there was a chance that Ethan would change his mind? She had finally climbed out of that misery and now, she wanted to go back in again. She was repeating her mistake and bringing herself suffering all over again. Olivia didn't answer the question but said, "If my baby was still alive, they would be about their age." Brent wanted to say something but stopped himself. In the end, he just said, "Madam, you're still young. There will be another chance for you to be a mother." She sighed. "I'm not having any more children." Desolation colored Olivia's face. Brent could tell that something was off. He wanted to ask more, but Olivia said, "Let's go." Ethan was already waiting for her in the car. The aloof look on his face showed indifference. He didn't even turn to look at her. After Via got into the car, he folded his arms. He was distant and cold as he said, "What do you plan on achieving in one?" Olivia threw herself into Ethan's arms. Yesterday, she was filled with hatred and wanted to get back at him. Once she saw the evidence, she was conflicted. She hated Ethan for what he did to the Fordhams and hated him even more for his betrayal. However, Jeff's wrongdoings were clear as day. She knew him well enough. Since things were getting nowhere, she wanted to put an end to everything with all she had left of her life. She wanted to leave the world without regrets. Ethan did not return her affection and only said coldly, I am getting engaged to Marina after the new year." Olivia's fingers that were tangled in his coat tightened, and the smile on her face froze. The back seat was dead silent. The heater was on in the car, but the driver, Kelvin, could feel the chill in the atmosphere. After a long while, Olivia finally looked up from his arms. "I just want a month." Ethan saw how fragile she was, and a feeling that he could not explain swirled in his heart. "Even if we had a year, nothing would change, let alone a month. Do you understand?" Olivia bit her lip. "I understand. But you're mine for a month, okay?" Ethan replied, "Okay." For the first time in more than a year, both of them gave in. She tightly wrapped herself around him like she did before. His finger moved slightly but eventually rested on his side. The car drove to Ethan's company. He asked Kelvin to send Olivia home. Olivia went to the hospital instead of the Miller residence. Jeff was still unconscious and had been moved to a normal ward. Olivia sent the helper home and personally prepared a bowl of warm water to wipe down his face and fingers. She muttered, "Dad, I know your secret. I wish it wasn't true. Please wake up and tell me that it's not, will you? Tell me you didn't do those things, that you didn't kill Jody." "Dad, I have stomach cancer. Ethan doesn't know, and it's for the best. If I give my life to him, will he let go of his hatred? My life has been smooth sailing thus far. You took really good care of me while I was growing up. You're the best dad in the world. No matter what you've done to others, you will always be someone I respect. I'll fix the damage you've done. I know you would never let me do this if you were still here, but I have no choice. I love him. I fell in love with him 8 years ago. It doesn't matter if it's only 1 month. I'm willing to put up with it." Olivia had a lot on her mind. She sat by her father's bedside for a long time, venting. She knew that her time on Earth was slowly depreciating. This was the only thing she could do for her father. She went back to the Miller residence in the afternoon. Ethan was a man of his word. He never broke any promises he made. The moment Olivia reached the Miller residence, she saw Marina, who had been waiting by the porch for a long time. Since Ethan was not present, she removed her facade. She looked like she was about to start trouble. She glared fiercely at Olivia. "Do you think he's going to come running back to you? Give up, Olivia." Olivia wasn't angry. She stared at her calmly. "Marina, do you love Ethan?" Marina was startled. She never expected Olivia to suddenly ask this question. She answered, "I decided to marry him and no one else more than 10 years ago. I met him earlier than you, him more than you do. You can't win." Olivia smiled wryly and responded, "I know that." She raised her head and said lightly, "I don't know if you believe me, but I never wanted to be your enemy. Even today. The dead could never win a fight against the living. Moreover, a conversation would not make her business with Ethan disappear. I only want 1 month. After 1 month, I will leave the city. Do you take me for a child?" "You," before she could finish, a loud baby's voice yelled, "Mama!" A small bundle of joy wearing a teddy bear onesie appeared in the snow. He waddled his way with his unsteady feet toward them. He fell after taking 2 steps. He ended up crawling. Connor swiftly crawled toward Olivia. Olivia was faster than Marina. She went forward and quickly scooped him up from the snow. The little angel looked very happy. He reached out with his chubby hands and tried to hug Olivia's neck. Marina swatted his arm away, causing the baby to cry. Olivia's heart ached at the sight of this, and she tried to hug him to stop the crying. Olivia was initially confused by Marina's dramatic response. She wondered how she could trip on flat ground. It all had to be a charade she was orchestrating. She knew Ethan was coming back. Of course, she brought the baby wherever she went. It wasn't even a surprise that she would fall with the baby in her arms. Even the angle she fell looked like it was intentionally going to hurt the baby. She was ruthless. She would even use her baby as leverage to get what she wanted. When she saw that Connor was about to hit the ground, her body acted faster than her rationale. She immediately caught Connor and cushioned his fall with her body. However, the weight fell mostly on the arm where her mini port was. The doctor reminded her many times not to pick up heavy objects and risk hurting her arm. She couldn't be bothered with that as the baby was falling. Although he wasn't a newborn, and he was small and light, she didn't think about what it would do to her body. She fell fast. Her world spun, and her arm burned with excruciating pain. When she opened her eyes, she saw the baby lying in her embrace. His set of big eyes looked at her curiously. Olivia could finally relax. Thank heavens he was fine. Ethan quickly came over. The first thing Marina did when she got up was scold Olivia. "Miss Fordham, I know you hate me, but Connor is a child. How could you even think about hurting him?" At a glance, any bystander would assume that Olivia was trying to hurt the baby. It wasn't the first time Marina had tried to frame her. Olivia couldn't be bothered to fight. She was breaking out in a cold sweat from the pain in her arm. Even breathing hurt. Ethan didn't scold Olivia. He bent down to pick up Connor, but the boy refused to leave. His tiny hands grabbed onto Olivia's collar as he babbled something that no one understood. Ethan glared coldly at Connor. Although Connor was young, he immediately shut up. He looked at Olivia, aggrieved. He looked like he wanted her to carry him. Marina took Connor from Ethan. He started crying again, not wanting her to touch him. "Ethan, Connor wants you," Marina said pitifully. "I brought him here, but I didn't expect that Miss Fordham would," Ethan unpleasantly interrupted her whining. "I'm sending the both of you home." Olivia was still flat on the ground, facing the sky. She wanted to get up, but her body felt like it was 80 years old. She had no strength to get up from the fall. She needed a hand, so she looked toward Ethan. "Ethan, could you?" Ethan glanced at her from the corner of his eye and said, "I'll come back later." Olivia could only watch his cold back as her mouth curled into a wry smile. Oh, how cruel he could be! In the past, he would comfort her even when he knew she was faking her pain. Now, he didn't believe her when she was hurting so much that she couldn't get up. This had nothing to do with trust. His heart was no longer with her. Snow fell on her face. She recalled when she was dating Ethan. He looked cold and aloof as he walked ahead of her. That day, she sprained her ankle on purpose. She sat on the ground and counted in her heart how long it would take for him to turn around. He turned back the moment she counted to 3 and rushed toward her. It was the first time she had seen panic on his face. She wrapped her arms around his neck and said coyly, "Maybe you shouldn't walk so fast next time." She counted until he reached his car. He did not turn back. Olivia lay forgotten on the ground, unmoving. Although the side effects of the treatment had reduced significantly, her body still felt weak. The hard fall felt like it had broken her bones. Brent and the rest were with Ethan. Madame Burgess used to be around, but she left. Now the house was empty. Snow fell from the sky, and cold wind came from all directions. Her hands and feet were frozen. She thought, "Someone please help me." Her bag was not far from where she was, but she could not turn over and reach for it. She could only stare at the snowflakes floating in a cruel ballet in the sky. Tears slowly fell from her face as she whispered, 885, 886. By the time she counted to 1038, Olivia had recovered enough strength to stand. She used one hand to support herself and got one up. She was freezing. When the car arrived, the tip of her nose was red from the cold. She couldn't raise the arm she used to catch the boy, so she had to use the other to help her breathe. "Miss, you must be cold. Are you going to the hospital alone? It's getting late. You should be careful. You should have someone with you. You're a beautiful lady. There have been a lot of stories in the news about ladies like you going missing." The driver warned her when he saw that she was going to the hospital alone at such a late hour. Olivia put her hand down. She was warming up from the heater in the car. She watched the scenery outside the window rapidly passing by. Her mouth curled into a smile as she said, "Thank you, sir, but I'm fine. My family will be with me soon." She didn't have any family. Luckily, Keith was done with work. She had been waiting for the on-call doctor. She saw a familiar face when she opened the door. Keith walked in wearing a white coat and his head down. His face looked even more elegant with his silver-rimmed glasses resting on his nose. Olivia didn't know he was working tonight. It would be too obvious if she backed out now. Keith lifted his head while she was deliberating on what to do. The eyes behind the glasses became more vibrant at the sight of her. Then, they quickly turned into a look of concern. He didn't think Olivia would come and see him this late. He rushed over quickly. "Is something wrong?" Olivia was so cold. Her hands were numb, and her arm ached. She said quickly, "Keith, my arm hurts." The look on Keith's face changed the moment he heard that the arm with the Mediport was hurting. "Quick, let me see. You studied medicine, so you should know this. If the Mediport loosens, it can cause your heart to constrict. You could be in great danger." This was not a small matter. Olivia had been very attentive toward that arm. However, what happened today was unexpected. Keith began to examine her. Thankfully, the Mediport was intact. Keith let out a breath of relief. Without apprehension, Olivia suggested, "Keith, help me take it out." "Take it out? You still have a few more rounds of chemotherapy." Olivia looked into his anxious eyes and said lightly, "I'm done with them." Keith had no idea what she had gone through the past few days. She used to have an inspirationally strong will to live. But now, Her eyes had a dark intensity to them, something he had never seen. They were pools of still water, devoid of ripples. Was it him? Did he do this to you? Olivia shook her head. No, but he has something to do with it, right? The Olivia I know wouldn't make this decision. Hurt flashed across Keith's face. He looked at the snow drifting on the wind outside the window and sighed. Maybe he did love you once, during that one winter. But this winter, he's chosen someone else. You should let him go, Liv. It was obvious that she had been blinded by love and lost herself. She was oblivious to the history the both of them had and was refusing to give up. Olivia knew that Ethan's love for her was in the past. Even if he let go of his hatred toward her, Leia's death would be a constant needle buried in his heart. It would leave him in agony for the rest of his life. Since he decided to marry Marina, she would use whatever was left of her life to find closure and make amends. Even if Jeff regained consciousness, Ethan wouldn't make things difficult for him. This was the best decision for everyone involved. Keith looked at her again. The vulnerability in her eyes was replaced with a rare determination. He sighed. Since you've made your decision, I have nothing to say. Olivia, you know the consequences of removing the Metaport. Are you sure? He seemed to love asking Olivia this. Olivia smiled and firmly said, yes. She pulled off part of her clothes and revealed her pale shoulder and her arm. The wound from before had healed over. She insisted on doing it without anesthesia. It was a simple procedure for Keith. Although she was lucky that the Metaport was still attached, her arm took subdermal damage from Connor's fall. Her skin was bruised. Keith carefully treated her wound. The sharp scalpel cut open her wound that had just healed over. A suffocating pain spread through her and into her heart. She resisted the urge to scream. Keith felt sorry for her seeing her wincing. His hands were still moving when he said lightly, "You can scream if it hurts." It was what the doctor told her the last time. Olivia insisted on bearing the pain as she gritted her teeth, one hand gripping the cold table tightly. Keith quickened his pace. Her arm hurt so much that it felt numb when the wound was sewn up. She was drenched in cold sweat and lay on the chair lifelessly. Keith brought her a cup of water. He sat opposite her and said patiently, "Olivia, I've followed up on your dad's condition with his doctor. There's an 80% chance that he'll wake up if we can get the world's best neurosurgeon, Leo, to operate on him. I've looked him up. Leo vanished after an accident 5 years ago. No one knows where he is." Olivia recovered with some water and rest. She could barely breathe from the pain from the wound touching the gauze. Yet, she forced herself to stand and was prepared to leave. "Thank you, Keith. You don't have to worry about me from now on. It doesn't matter if I've divorced Ethan, he won't let me interact with other men. I don't want to cause trouble for you." Olivia stumbled as she stood up. She smiled frailly. "I fell in love with him the moment I laid eyes on him. I've loved him for so many years. I can't just let him go." Keith saw tears streaming down her face. He wanted to wipe them for her, but he was in no position to. He could only stay still and look at her. Tears slid down her chin. Olivia smiled wryly. "I know it's suffocating. But, the thought of watching him marry another girl hurts more than my cancer. I have no reason to live, so I'm choosing to die. I recently stumbled upon a saying. If you knew you were destined not to end up with the man you love dearly, would you choose to live through the joy and hurt and watch it end, or turn around and leave before it even starts? Olivia laughed at herself. If I hadn't met him, I would have chosen to turn around and leave. However, such is fate that I am unable to escape. He and I agreed that he would keep me company for another month. We will get divorced after. By then, I will take the step back to look around, like you want me to. Keith looked at how clumsy each of her steps were. Her right hand rested on her left shoulder as she walked. She kept her back turned to him as she said, "Keith, thank you for everything you've done for me. I don't deserve you." She slowly inched her way to the chilly outdoors. There was a blizzard howling outside. Her silhouette drifted further away into the distance. Keith did not want to let her go. He looked out the window and watched her disappear. The corner of his lips curled into a helpless smile. Why was she so persistent? Was Ethan really worth it? Keith likened her to a pious priest on a vision quest, looking for a holy place that never existed in the first place. The lights were on when Olivia got back to the Miller residence. She looked at the cozy mansion in the snow, reminiscing how it had been 3 years ago. Warm air flooded her the moment she opened the door. She took her shoes off and found Ethan busy in the kitchen. As usual, he was there. He was wearing a grey cashmere sweater. His forearm muscles pushed against his rolled sleeves, making him look especially attractive. His left arm bore a long and ugly scar. The scar was from when he shielded her from a thug that was coming at her with a sharp knife. Ethan was focused on cooking when he felt a hug behind him. He was stunned and stopped as Olivia buried her head into his back. He continued cooling for a bit more and turned the flame off. He stood at the stove and did not turn back. He said softly, "Where did you go?" "I was at the hospital for my arm." He knew how she could be. He had to care for her quite intently, even when she got a small cut. Her fall this time was much worse than that. It didn't matter what Marina said. Ethan was not blind. He could tell that she was trying to save Connor. "Thank you for today." Connor was okay. After that, Ethan skillfully plated the food and brought it to the dining table. Olivia was rooted to the spot, shocked. It was the first time he had ever thanked her. A wave of regret followed. The thank you was meant to set a professional distance. She wanted to tell him, "Ethan, I went to get my arm stitched up. It still hurts now. Can you make it better, please?" Looking at his tall back, Olivia muttered to herself, "What's there to thank? One hate that little punk. One, of all people, hope he hurt." Ethan didn't expose her horrible attempt at lying. He called out to her from the side of the dining table. "Come and eat. Wash your hands first." Rays of light from the chandelier fell on him. Without his suit and tie, the woolly cashmere sweater added a domestic warmth to him. Even his elegant face was less cold than usual. He was wearing the apron she got him 3 years ago. It almost looked like nothing had changed. Olivia went toward him smiling and saw that the table was filled with the spicy food she used to like. If he paid attention to what Madame Burgess had been making for her recently, he would realize that her palate had changed. He no longer took notice of her like he used to. They tried so hard to revert to the life they had, but that life was far behind them. A lot of things ended silently, like his love. The answer to everything now was silence and distance. Although her stomach couldn't handle spicy or oily foods, she had hoped for a feast like this for 2 years. So, she pushed through the discomfort and ate it. Since her life was on a countdown, she appreciated every meal she had even more. It was 1 meal less for every meal she finished. Ethan had known her for a long time. He could tell when she was faking happiness. It was obvious that she was forcing herself to be happy. Had his cooking skills depreciated after 2 years? Ethan finally spoke to break the silence. Is the food not up to your standards? No, it's great. It tastes exactly like how it used to. I was thinking about how long we hadn't eaten together and how much longer we still have. The old Ethan would have said forever. Now, he stared at the snow outside the window and remained silent. Olivia set herself up for that. Why would she ask such a dumb question? 1 month was the last ounce of grace he could extend. Before he could answer, she started to feel a piercing pain in her stomach. She hadn't eaten spicy food in a long time. It hurt so bad that she was tearing up. I'm done. Please help yourself. Olivia got up and rushed upstairs. She vomited into the toilet severely. Looking at the globs of blood, she could tell that she didn't have much time left. She had to seize every moment. Olivia showered, avoiding the wound on her arm. She noticed that she was experiencing hair loss. However, stopping her treatments now would stop her hair from completely falling out. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Although she looked pale and sickly, her skinny face accentuated her eyes. At least, she could leave this earth beautiful. Ethan was in the home office. Olivia knocked on the door and went in. He was wearing gold-rimmed glasses. They both wore glasses. Keith looked elegant and classy when he did, but Ethan looked fierce and severe. The glasses couldn't hide the dangerous look in his eyes. He looked up and then at her coldly. Olivia immediately said, I want to see the auroras. You owe me a honeymoon. In Iceland. Back then, she and Ethan had only signed the papers, they did not have a wedding. If anyone caught them together on camera, he would ask for it to be deleted. No one knew he was married. Apart from the marriage papers, everything else a girl dreamed of, the wedding, the dress, and the honeymoon, never happened. That was why Ethan pampered her greatly after they were married. It was as if he was compensating. Ethan put down the pen he was holding, adjusted his glasses, and said in a low voice, You know I'm busy at the end of the year. Plus, it's hard to predict when the auroras will appear. He was trying to say that he couldn't afford it. Now, the man who was willing to spend half a year nurturing a rose garden for her because of something she said, was no longer willing to spend a few days with her outside of the country. When he loved her, he was head over heels. Now that he didn't, he was unsympathetic. Olivia gently tugged the corner of his shirt and begged, I don't have much time left. Can you give it to me, please? Olivia, don't take advantage of the situation. He looked at her coldly. He assumed she was referring to the month they agreed on. He didn't even hesitate to reject her idea. Am I taking advantage of the situation? Olivia mocked. You think you're wasting your time with me? You're preparing for your engagement, aren't you? The tips of Ethan's slender fingers gently tapped on the surface of the table. He coolly looked in her direction and said, I told you I was getting engaged. Although his face remained expressionless, Olivia could see the challenge in his eyes. She was the one who begged for the month. She deserved it. She looked at him silently, then smiled. Pardon my wishful thinking. Sorry to bother you. Olivia opened the door and left. Then, a man's voice called out from behind her. Pick somewhere local. She stopped in her tracks, and her face was filled with excitement. Let's go to Mohi. Olivia left delightedly. There was a lower chance of seeing the auroras in Mohi town, but having him spend her last days with her was enough for her. It was late into the night. He slept beside her. Olivia wasn't asleep. She curled her body carefully. It was as if there was a sea between both of them. She didn't dare get too close to him, afraid he would notice the wound on her arm. He immediately faced the other side when he got in bed and had no intention of paying attention to her. Olivia quietly looked out the window into the night, struggling to fall asleep. He left for work early the next day. Olivia kept herself busy. She was hoping to atone for her father during her last days. She followed the address in the document and went to a psychiatric hospital to visit one of the victims, Belle Sanders. Place like she was sent there 2 years ago due to her tendency toward self-harm. This was the first time Olivia had visited this. It was quieter than normal hospitals with the occasional sight of security guards wearing protective gear. It was as if the place would go to war anytime. The nurse who was bringing her up to Belle's room repeatedly reminded Olivia to maintain a certain distance from the patient. Belle had a roommate. She saw Olivia and started giggling. Belle was a quiet girl. Her long hair rested over the number on her gown. She was hugging her knees as she looked out the window, her eyes were lifeless. Belle! Olivia gently called for her. She had met Belle once previously at an innovation competition. She was full of vigor, and her eyes were radiant back then. The person on the bed moved and turned curiously toward Olivia. Before Olivia could speak, she grabbed her hand and shushed her, saying, "Keep it down. Someone is trying to take my baby." Olivia looked at the pillow in her arm. She didn't want to trigger her, so she nodded and asked, "Who is trying to take your baby?" Tap, tap, tap. The sound of high heels resounded in the hallway. Belle was so terrified of the sound that she hid behind the curtains, shivering. "She's here. She's here to take my baby." Before Olivia could speak, a woman in a white lab coat and a name tag on her chest that said director stood at the entrance. She said fiercely, "Belle's mental state is clinically unstable. She does not have the capacity to entertain guests. Miss Fordham, please leave." Olivia set the fruit basket down and explained, "She's my friend. I'm just here to check on her. Then, I'll leave." "That won't be necessary. Being near people will worsen her condition." "Miss Fordham, please." Belle stuffed the pillow into Olivia's arms and desperately said, "Leave with my baby and take care of it. I will stall these people. Quick, run." As she spoke, she picked up the fruit basket Olivia brought and threw it at the doctor. I will kill you, you demon! I'll kill you if you even think about taking my baby away!" Security guards burst through the doors with helmets and vests and took her down with a stun gun. 4 men carried her to her bed and tied her to it. Belle was still screaming, "Give me back my baby!" She slowly lost her strength as she was given a tranquilizer. She fell unconscious shortly after. Olivia was startled by everything that was happening before her. It felt more like a prison than a hospital. The doctors were merely wardens. The unconscious Belle looked so innocent. Olivia was escorted out of the room before she could even ask anything. When Olivia glanced back as she left, she saw Dr. Galloway scolding the nurses for letting her in. Dr. Galloway looked up at her and met Olivia's eyes. Dr. Galloway quickly averted her gaze and stopped her lecture. Olivia felt that something was off, especially with the fact that Dr. Galloway seemed to know who she was when they had never met. According to Ethan, it all happened to Belle after her high school examinations. Jeff abandoned her, and she was sent to this hospital for treatment after losing her baby and becoming mentally unwell. However, something was off about her. She kept mentioning a baby, but nothing about Olivia's father. Could it be that she had repressed memories of her father? Olivia left for Belle's house to ask her parents about what had happened. When she reached the Sanders, the place now belonged to someone else. Belle's parents had migrated overseas about a year ago. Olivia found it bizarre that they would abandon their daughter. The Sanders were an average family. They wouldn't have had the money to go overseas even if the youngest son was a prize-winning scientist. She asked Ryan out again, and as always, Ryan respectfully agreed. "Miss Fordham." "Ryan, I have something to ask. Do you know Belle Sanders?" "I do." "That poor girl. She had a mental breakdown quite suddenly about 2 years ago." He sighed. "Her family must have pressured her too much about school. She's in a bad state. Being mentally weak can cause a lot of problems." "Ryan, did Belle have a boyfriend?" Ryan waved his hand. "No. She prioritized her studies and always kept her distance from guys. The only guy she was close to was Mr. Fordham. Mr. Fordham is a kind man. He helped them all unconditionally, Jody, Belle, and also the late Angel. They had short lives. Mr. Fordham's care toward them had really gone to waste. I know that the family is not rich. Why could they suddenly migrate overseas? Her mother remarried to a rich man. Belle was supposed to go overseas for her studies but was unexpectedly caught in this mess. Mr. Fordham must feel so sorry for her if he knew. He was kind to Belle. He had high hopes for her too. Alas, such is the cruelty of fate. Olivia gathered information on a few people. However, it was nothing new from what she learned from Ethan. She wanted to make reparations with these girls. Unfortunately, they had either moved somewhere else or back to their hometowns. They were nowhere to be found. Olivia had to stop and wait for Belle to settle down before visiting the psychiatric hospital again. She chatted with Ryan for a while before heading their separate ways. Olivia looked at the colors of the sky before hailing a cab home. It was the evening rush. Olivia leaned against the car window and closed her eyes to rest. The cab was playing the local news on the radio. A headline about someone jumping off the roof of a psychiatric hospital caught her attention. Olivia opened her eyes and asked the driver to turn up the volume. It was the psychiatric hospital she went to earlier. She did a quick search on her phone and saw that the deceased patient was Belle, whom she just visited. She killed herself. She was wearing a hospital gown in the picture. Her face had a strange smile. Olivia immediately felt a chill run up her back when she saw the picture. Her hair stood on end. The driver hurriedly asked, "Miss, what's wrong? You look like you saw a ghost." "And nothing. It's a shame what happened to that girl. She's sick in the head. Happens all the time. My cousin's kid has depression and tried killing himself a few times. Leaving this earth seems like the only way they'll be free." Olivia was reluctant to agree with him. The woman who was tied to her bed and tranquilized plagued her mind. She was so young. She felt depressed the entire way home. Ethan was not back yet. She slumped on the sofa, letting the physical and mental exhaustion wash over her. The image of Belle jumping was all she could think about. Olivia thought about how similar her ending would be after she died. She had no family. Would Ethan be devastated? Or would he finally be free of her? Olivia turned her phone on and planned her trip to Mohi Town. She needed to cherish every day she had from now on. Ethan came home very late that night. When she saw him, she quickly went to him with her notebook. She had spent the whole night organizing the information. "When are you free to go to Mohi? I've looked through hotels and plane tickets. We can go." The notebook in her hands was struck to the ground fiercely before she could finish. She finally noticed the anger on Ethan's face. His eyes were dead cold. The smile on Olivia's face froze. She cautiously asked, "What's the matter?" Ethan's tall figure stormily inched closer. He was more demon than man. Olivia was terrified by his glare. "Were you at Leia's grave?" Olivia nodded. "Yes. I went to visit Leia's grave when I visited Grandma a while back. I know you hate my father, but I think I have the right to visit her at the very least." "Visit?" Ethan snorted coldly, then he threw a bunch of photos at Olivia. The grave under the plum tree had been shattered into pieces. The whole place was a mess. Olivia was stunned. What happened? Ethan received her shocked eyes with a cold glare. "Don't pretend, Olivia, you always wanted things to go your way, but you were kind. I've been gracious to you many times, but I never expected you to be cruel. Leia never enjoyed a day of her life on Earth, and this is how she is being treated after her death." Olivia only came to her senses after a while. Her face was filled with disbelief. "You think I did that?" Ethan was silent. He looked so unhappy that Olivia could feel thorns growing around her heart. Ethan said, "I hope it has nothing to do with you. You were there for 3 hours. Tell me, what were you doing there?" Olivia thought it was ridiculous that she even had to explain. "I told you I went to visit Grandma. Is it my fault that I have no one to talk to, so I spend all my time talking to my dead grandmother? Besides, it's a gravestone, not a croissant. It would break my arm to do all that. Even if you're trying to frame me for it, at least bring some evidence. Look at this then. What is all this?" Ethan revealed another stack of pictures with Olivia holding a hammer. Even Olivia was stunned. An old man in charge of grave maintenance dropped his tools. He looked so pitiful, so I helped him pick his tools up. Olivia didn't know how someone could take photos like this. She anxiously explained, I only said a few words in front of Leia's grave. The gravestone was fine when I left. Ethan, trust me. Why would I do that? What would I have to gain from this? Ethan looked at the way she anxiously justified herself and found it ridiculous. He lifted her chin with his slender fingers and pressed the tip of his finger on her lip. Such a beautiful mouth, but so full of lies. Brent admitted that he told you where Leia's grave was, and that you went looking for a private eye. She knew Ethan would see through her lies, so she immediately admitted, yes. I did have a private eye on the case, but all I wanted was to understand why you're the way you are now. Even when I found out that Jody and Leia were the same person, I only left flowers on her grave. I went to Grandma's grave after that. Plus, I'm sick. I don't have the strength to climb the stairs in this house, let alone shatter a grave. Do you think I believe you? Leia had to be Jody even until the day she died. She had no enemies other than your family. Please tell me. Who else would want to destroy her grave when she's been dead for 2 years? If no one else would, why do you think I would? Of course you would. You're unhappy that I've been cold to you for the past 2 years. You blame me for not saving our baby and forcing the Fordhams to declare bankruptcy. You hate me to my guts, and you hate me even more for Leia. You learned who she was, and you lashed out at her grave. Olivia kept shaking her head. It wasn't me. Ethan inched his way closer as he continued, you were resolute about getting a divorce. However, you went back on your word and asked for 1 more month. What is your strategy here? You're avenging Jeff, aren't you? Olivia's anxious tears slid down her face. She realized she was never going to get out of this. She kept shaking her head. No. I would never think of doing that. Ethan ignored her desperate attempts to explain. He tightened the grip between his fingers and grabbed Olivia's chin. His eyes were filled with disappointment. Olivia, you must know that I prayed that none of this had anything to do with you. I asked someone to find evidence to prove that, but all I got were these. You went to the psychiatric hospital today, and Belle died after that. What did you say to her? Do you believe if you get your revenge, Jeff will regain consciousness? He blamed everything on Olivia. Olivia had no way to explain herself. Leia was Ethan's kryptonite. Destroying the gravestone and digging the grave up was a massive disrespect to the dead. Someone was dragging the Miller name through the mud. Who could stand for this? Ethan's fingers slid down and closed firmly around her neck. His grip tightened slowly. Olivia, do you know how miserable Leia was while you were living your princess life? I personally went to the village where she used to live. It was a poor and desolate hellhole. Many of them hadn't had a full meal for 3 whole days. I heard she had been sold off and locked in a woodshed like a dog. She's the daughter of the Miller family, she should have been treated like a princess, but she was treated like dirt. She suffered for so many years, and when she finally made her way to Aldenvine, could have found her if she held on for a little longer. Olivia couldn't speak. She could hardly breathe with Ethan's hands around her neck. Tears couldn't stop flowing from her eyes as pushed Ethan back, trying to stir him from his rage. Ethan was lost in his grief. She was tainted by your father. She was choked to death and stuffed in a box. She must have felt so hopeless. You look like you've lost all hope now too. Can you feel even a little bit of what she felt? Let go. Olivia struggled, but it was useless. Ethan's eyes were red like a rabid animal. Olivia struggled to breathe. She knew that she was going to be choked to death if this continued. She had to keep fighting. Olivia, I was going to let you go, but you came barging in. The look on Ethan's face grew more intense. His eyes lost their focus as he slowly said, Liv, let's go see Leia. She must be so lonely. My suffering will stop after we're both dead in the ground. Olivia knew that Ethan had lost his mind when he said that. In her struggle, Ethan accidentally touched her wound that had just been stitched up yesterday. The wound ripped, and fresh scarlet blood soaked her white silk nightgown. Seeing the red, Ethan finally let her go. Olivia lay on the ground. Ethan wanted to check her wound, but Olivia quickly retreated. Her eyes stared at him in full alert. Ethan retracted his hand numbly and regained himself. What had he done? He almost killed Olivia. Your arm, he said hoarsely. Olivia got up from the ground, grabbed her coat from the sofa, braced the cold, and left the Miller residence. She thought she was a goner when he started choking her. It was like her whole life was about to end. She thought she would die, and worse, the near-death experience was not as calming as she thought it would be. She only had one thought run. Ethan looked down and stared at his hands. How could he do that to Olivia? The raging cold wind from outside brought him back to his senses. He quickly followed after Olivia with his car as he thought of how frantically Olivia had rushed into the snowstorm. Olivia was not thinking. She hid behind a tree the moment she heard a car. She was still trembling when she saw Ethan leave. She was safe from the clutches of danger. She searched for her phone and hesitated before calling Everly. Everly's loud voice came through, "Miss me, babe?" Olivia suppressed her sobs. "Eve, can you come pick me up?" Olivia knew Ethan was deeply affected by his sister's death. His mental health became more unstable in the past 2 years. At that moment, he thought about killing her and sending himself off to see his sister till Everly wasn't here yet. Just then, a bright light shone from a distance before a car came to a halt not far from her. Ethan must have been smart enough to figure out that she hadn't left yet and turned back. The moment the car door opened, the man anxiously got down from the car and looked around. He was searching for something. Soon, he walked in Olivia's direction. Olivia stood there blankly before she cowered. Her whole body remained completely still, only her fingers moved to grab the corners of her clothes tightly. Olivia was so scared as she heard his footsteps closing in on her. She held her breath and closed her eyes. She didn't know what Ethan would do when he found her. Would she lose her life and join Leela? The love of her life was now a completely different person. It was her first time feeling fear. Her heart was beating wildly with every step he took. She was scared, absolutely terrified. The man's leather shoes made a crunching sound as he walked on a pile of snow. The sound drew closer as if the call of death was getting nearer with each passing second. Olivia's face was drained of color. Then, Ethan stopped in his tracks right before a 100-year-old tree. It was the only thing separating her from him. A few seconds later, she only heard the rustling sounds of him leaving. Olivia finally relaxed he didn't see her. However, she soon realized that she had left a trail of blood on her way here. It would stand out so clearly against the white snow. How could he not have seen her? Olivia was unsure of what he was thinking when he stopped for a few seconds. However, it was obvious, he was letting her go. Olivia slowly peeped her head out. She watched as the man's silhouette left under the moonlight. She couldn't see the look on his face, but she could tell the air around him was heavy. Perhaps it was his silent way of saying goodbye. Everly came to pick her up. She was mortified by the sight of Olivia being out in the cold and the blood on her. She screamed, "Did Ethan do this? I'm gonna give him a piece of my mind. He thinks he's all that because he's rich, huh? Infidelity and abuse. I'm going to call the media and have his sins splashed all over the news." Olivia laughed wryly. She quickly stopped Everly from smashing Ethan's car and saving her from paying the insurance for it. "Please send me to the hospital. This has nothing to do with him. He doesn't know that I'm sick." "Sick? What do you have?" Everly asked. "It's a long story. I'll slowly explain when we have time." It was the wee hours of the morning when Everly quickly sent her to the hospital to attend to her wound and came back. When they went back to Olivia's apartment, Everly sat opposite her and pulled a straight face. "Tell me. What have you been hiding from me? How did your arm get hurt?" "Eve, please be mentally prepared for what I'm about to say." Everly lit a cigarette in her hand and put on a coy look. "What? Are you underestimating me? What have I not seen? Just tell me. It'll start raining cows if I'm fazed by it. I'm dying." Everly froze as she was smoking. Then, she heard Olivia continue, "I have stomach cancer." Everly could not believe her ears and was dazed for a few seconds until she started choking. When she regained her senses, she frantically put her cigarette out. She continued coughing as tears began to form in the corners of her eyes. She looked helpless from all the crying and choking. While trying to snuff her cigarette in the ashtray, her arm accidentally bumped into the cup next to it. It spilled water all over the table. She quickly took a piece of tissue and haphazardly wiped the spilled water. However, with how aggressive she was, she managed to knock most of the things off the table. An unscrewed bottle of medication for stomach cancer fell over on the table. A few capsules rolled onto the floor. The white bottle cap spun a few times before it landed on the ground. Everly muttered, "Look how dumb I am. My ears are already acting up at this age, haha. I actually heard you say you have stomach cancer. The anger one feel, must have gone to my cars." Olivia lest her palm to the back of Everly's hand and said gently, "Eve, you have to face reality." Everly stopped what she was doing and looked up at Olivia through blurry eyes. "You're kidding, right?" However, Olivia's eyes were dead serious. "You know I never joke around. I was going through chemotherapy when I cut my hair short last time." Everly fought back her tears to no avail. She grabbed Olivia's hand tightly, still unable to fathom it. It must be a misdiagnosis. You're so young and strong as a bull. How could you have stomach cancer? Olivia sat her down and explained everything. Everly's face was covered in tears. With them both being so young, she had always taken their good health for granted. She couldn't comprehend that such a terminal illness had hit so close to home. Everything happening around her now felt surreal, like a dream. And no worries. The medical field is very advanced now. I'm sure you'll be fine if you work with the doctor on your treatment. Everly wiped her tears using the back of her hand. I'm sorry. I didn't know you went through so much. I will tag along for your chemotherapy sessions. I'm doing well financially now, so I can afford to not work for a year. I'll be with you until you get better. Olivia gently shook her head as her eyes gazed out the window lifelessly. Eve, let's go and enjoy the aurora together. Okay. Once you get better, that is. And not just the aurora. Even if you want the stars in the sky, I'd pluck them just for you. Someone once said they would pluck the stars for me too. Everly wanted to smack Olivia's head. You hopeless romantic. He doesn't want you anymore. Why are you still thinking about him? Get better soon and date around to get back at him. Eve, you can't blame him. He's sick too. He has cancer too? I hope it's at the later stages. You can stay with him for a little longer, and then his inheritance will become yours once he dies. Olivia was unsure whether to laugh or cry. Come, let me tell you everything. They finally laid down on the bed as Olivia explained everything to her from the beginning. Her voice was sweet. It was like the light breeze on a summer evening, blowing one's worries away. Everly was silent after listening to everything. So, he is blaming you for his sister's death? And he cheated to get back at you? Isn't he even more of a scum now? Olivia rebutted, I can understand the care and guilt he feels toward his sister. If it happened to me, I wouldn't sit there and do nothing, either. He is suffering more than we could imagine. Liv, you can't just cook up excuses for his bad behavior because he's suffering too. Quit being a hopeless romantic for him. Since he is letting you go, then go your separate ways. Take his alimony and leave. Eve, have you gotten over Josh yet? Everly fell silent. It was not easy letting go of a relationship of many years. I need time. Time heals everything. Even the vows you made when you were madly in love could be washed away by time until there's nothing left, right? No love lasts in this world. But I have no time anymore, Olivia muttered. Don't give up on your treatment. Eve, do you know what chemotherapy feels like? It feels like someone sucks everything in your body dry. I'm in pain. Everywhere hurts, and I have no strength. I'm so useless. This is only the first stage. They will put the chemicals into my bones in the later stages. It's going to be so painful. My father is still unconscious in the hospital, and my mother remarried a long time ago. The only man I've loved in my life has found his happen. As a former medical student, Everly was very aware of the side effects of chemo, and she expressed her understanding of Olivia's decision. Moreover, a lot of patients died from the side effects rather than the cancer itself, which was a torturous way to go. She could never selfishly request Olivia to endure the pain. She hugged the latter from behind before she started to weep. Okay. I'll stay by your side. Olivia's pajamas were soaked with Everly's tears. Everly said, "You must have been through so much pain. Sorry for not knowing this earlier. I've been doing better in the past 2 days. Eve, thank you. I don't want to leave the world alone. I had wanted Ethan to keep me company, but look at how things turned out. He and I are probably done for." Everly fumed at the mention of Ethan. "Liv, you said that someone damaged his sister's grave, and there was footage of you with a hammer in your hand. Could you have been framed? Marina must have been behind this. No one else could have done that to me." The incident happened a month after Ethan agreed to keep her company. Marina must have had something to do with it. If you knew it was her, how can you be so calm about it? She has pulled a lot of tricks since last year to get us divorced, and to be honest, she wasn't the most tactful. Ethan knew what she was up to, but he always sided with her. At first, I'd stand up for myself, but I realized that the truth wasn't important at all. What mattered was that he'd chosen her over me. Everly tried to hype up the dejected Olivia. But this time, it's different. If she was the person who defaced Leia's grave, you should hold her accountable even if you get a divorce. Eve, Marina isn't the obstacle in my relationship with Ethan. He's troubled by the death of his sister. There's no way to resolve his grudge unless we somehow revive Leia. And even if we put behind all the grudges, our relationship is over. I get what you mean. But Liv, you shouldn't let him step all over you just because you think your family is to blame. He shouldn't be using Leia's death as an excuse for his infidelity. Ultimately, he has betrayed you and is heartless for abandoning you and your baby to save Marina. I admit that he was good to you in the past, but it's time for you to move on, Everly patiently advised her friend. She continued, Liv, you only live once. Even if your dad is responsible for Leia's death, it is not your burden to bear. You do not have to accept punishment for wrongdoings that were not even your own. You asked if I have gotten over Josh. And my answer to that is, one day, I will. As for you, you have to live your remaining days for yourself, even if that means only for a day. Live for myself. All of a sudden, Olivia seemed to have gotten out of her rut. She still struggled to sleep well that night, for she'd have nightmares of a devilish Ethan grabbing at her throat. She woke up a few times in the night. It was already dawn the last time she woke up. She sat up in bed and blankly touched the area of her neck that Ethan gripped in her dream. Even if they could not spend their lives together, she would hate to be enemies with him. She looked at Everly, who was sleeping soundly, and tiptoed her way out of the room to wash up before leaving the house. The city was a sight to behold, covered in a blanket of snow. Even the vast ocean was calm under the sunlight as it palpitated peacefully in the form of small waves. A few seagulls soared in the sky, braving the chilly winds. Some distance away, ships blared their horns as they set sail. The world moved on even after Ethan left her, as if nothing had changed. She came to a decision and texted Ethan. This time, they met each other as promised. She showed up with every inch of her skin wrapped tightly under a white down jacket, a fuzzy bee-ante, and a plait of snow boots. It seemed like she was unable to stand the cold, and wondered if Slur had always been near Hills. His eyes traveled to the delicate and smooth skin on her neck, where even a slight blush would hesitantly leave a red mark. She wrapped her neck in a thick knitted scarf. Standing under a snow-covered plain free, she looked as pure as a fairy. He was concerned about the bleeding on her arm yesterday. Did it get better? Ethan had so much to say to her, but he only managed to blurt out a curt response. Let's go. They seemed to be bound to a silent understanding not to bring up the past. Once they completed the procedure, they were officially divorced. Olivia didn't say a word throughout the process and turned to leave once the divorce was finalized. He couldn't help but ask, "What are your plans after this?" She didn't even turn around to look at him. "It's none of your business, Mr. Miller." A piece of snow fell from the tree branch onto her shoulder. Ethan reflexively reached out to wipe it off, but his fingers froze mid-air when he realized that he had no right to do so. The reason he set her free was to put an end to the grudges between them. The sunny winter day reminded him of the weather on the day they got married. She was lovely in her white bridal dress, wearing a bright smile. That day, she joked with him, "I hope we'll never need to visit this place anymore." "Never. But what if you cheat on me?" "Kill me, then." "A dead man can't cheat." The seriousness in his expression then might have scared her a little. It had only been 3 years since that conversation took place on their wedding day. At present, Olivia felt his gaze, but she marched forward into the snow without looking back. She repeatedly reminded herself to handle the farewell with dignity. Still, she was overcome by sadness at the thought of this day being their last meeting and the fact that they would go back to being strangers. Not long after she exited the building, she overheard Marina's excited voice. "Ethan, congratulations! Your wish came true." "A wish come true?" Olivia smirked but acknowledged that the divorce might have happened sooner, perhaps in the week she lost her baby, if she hadn't stubbornly clung to Ethan for the past year. Ethan did not reply to Marina. She went on, "The documents are ready. Let's head in to get the marriage certificate." Olivia did not hear Ethan's reply. Marina's remark suffocated her. Everly held her frail frame and gently asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Everly glanced at the couple. Marina was speaking animatedly while Ethan hung his head low. The shade of the trees that cast a shadow on his face made it harder to discern his expression. "Cheaters." Everly spat and wiped away the tears on Olivia's cheeks. "Don't waste your tears." Olivia tried her best to put on a smile. "I know. I lost control of myself for a moment there." "You little dummy. You have to understand that you cannot rely on anyone. A man could be your safe harbor one day and leave you out in the cold the next. I haven't seen you wearing your confidence in a long time. You should have shone brightly in your world, living your best life." Olivia gave Ethan a final look before winding up the car window. He returned the stare, which he knew was one of farewell. The post-divorce life wasn't as terrible as Olivia had thought. She rested at home for a few days with Everly's company. Her best friend prepared nutritious meals for her. Her condition improved. She did not suffer much from the effects of chemo. She could never be as healthy as her pre-cancer days. But at least her fainting spells had decreased. The wound on her arm healed, and her hair loss was under control. Everything seemed to be working out for her. Everly was happy for Olivia. They spent a few nights sleeping side by side. She believed that Olivia would eventually emerge stronger from the trauma as she had stopped sleeping by the baby cot. Seeing that Olivia was in great condition, Everly suggested, the class president organized a gathering. Let's attend it together since we're both free. Olivia wanted to turn down the invitation but was cut off by Everly. Our old classmates are doing pretty well for themselves. Aren't you looking for a better neurosurgeon? Who knows? Some of our classmates could connect you to people they know. Everly added, you always say that you don't have many days left. That's more reason not to laze around. It's good to go out once in a while. Everly soon understood Olivia's worries when she spotted her friend's troubled expression. Olivia was once the daughter of a wealthy family and a prize student who had a bright future. Now, Olivia was no longer comparable to their classmates. The Fordhams were bankrupt, and she dropped out of medical school. You're just being self-conscious. Look at me, I'm not embarrassed for dropping out of med school to become the top salesperson. What are you afraid of? You have $10 million under your name, so you're kind of a millionaire. Oh, didn't that jerk also award you some equity in Miller Group? There were a lot of detailed clauses in Olivia's divorce settlement. Ethan was rather generous in financial compensation. Although he did not give away half of his wealth, the compensation he provided Olivia was enough for a lifetime and more. She'd be getting millions in annual dividends from her shares in the Miller Group. On top of that, she was left with some properties to her name. Ethan might have done so to make it up to her or to sever all ties with her, but regardless, he was not stingy in this department. Olivia finally agreed to attend the gathering after being pestered by Everly. She realized that Everly was right after reading all the news about Ethan's upcoming engagement party. Since her days were numbered, she should leave the divorce behind her. All right. I'll go. That's more like it. You were the crush of many boys back in school. What if one of them is still into you? Treat yourself better and let loose when you're still young. After some serious thinking, Olivia asked, will Peyton Bollinger be there? Of course. Well, Peyton is a nice guy, but he isn't easy on the eyes. Wait a minute. Did your standards drop drastically after that painful divorce with that jerk? Olivia shook her head. No. I heard that he took over his father's business in the funeral industry after graduation, and he's doing quite well. I thought I should ask him to do his old classmate a favor and reserve a good parcel of land for my grave. Although Olivia breached the topic calmly, it was clearly upsetting for Everly. Ugh, can you please not? Olivia held Everly's hand and said, Eve, that's the reality. You need to accept it. We will eventually die someday. Crestfallen again, Everly cussed, why isn't that cheating Marina dying? Well, that's fate. I suppose my baby misses me too much. Don't be too sad about it. I've completed the marathon of life, but you take your time. To soothe Everly, she joked, do pay me lots of visits and bring fresh flowers when I'm gone. Think of it as an early investment while I set things up in heaven for both of us. When it's your time to join me, we'll be living the high life in heaven with angels looking after us. Does that make you feel better? Everly finally smiled through her tears. Oh, I guess I'll need to find the perfect spot for your grave so you can rest in peace and look after your kids from above. Ah, shoot, I forgot you don't have kids. You should hang on for a few more years, and I'll make you the godmother of my child." Olivia grinned. "Sounds good." At night, Olivia dressed up for the classmate gathering. Her short hair made her look chic and grown up. She exuded the elegance of a white rose when she was unsmiling. In Everly's words, Olivia could have stood anywhere in silence and still be pleasing to the eyes. On their way to the hotel, Everly asked, "Olivia, what's your plan now? How about traveling the world? We have all the time and money." Olivia rested her cheek on her palm, staring at the scenery outside of the car window. She calmly replied, "I'll create a charity foundation. There are a lot of terminal patients like me in this world. I'd also like to sponsor the education of low-income kids from the countryside." Everly was at a loss for words as she felt crushed by Olivia's decision. Even with all the money in the world, Olivia could only save everyone but herself. Still, she didn't blame anyone for her fate and was generous enough to light the path for strangers. "Live, really?" Olivia smiled. "It's my way of paying for my dad's sins." "Live, we can sense the good or evil in a person. I truly believe that your dad is a kind man. Have you ever thought that the evidence against him might be fake? I didn't believe that he'd hurt other women at first, not until I saw the evidence. I bet it was a worse nightmare for Ethan. He even tried to refute the evidence, but in the end, he had to give up. The evidence is likely real." Could Ethan have pulled this on you to justify his affair?" "Eve, he's Ethan Miller. He doesn't need to get into this mess to ask for a divorce." "That's true." Everly sighed. "The evidence is rock solid, but I still feel that something's off. That makes the two of us. Dad was recovering well, and I was planning to take care of him after he was discharged. Why did he suffer from a sudden heart attack? And there was Belle. After I visited her, she immediately jumped off a building on the same day. On my first visit to Leia's grave, someone took a photo of me. There are too many coincidences." But soon, Olivia collected herself and explained, "I finally came to terms with it. I cannot deny my dad's crimes just because it's hard for me to accept. On the day Dad was hospitalized, I checked the visitor log at home, but it was empty. Perhaps, he was just aggrieved at the bankruptcy. And Belle's death was probably a coincidence. The desecration of Leia's grave could have been Marina's doing. She wanted to force me to divorce Ethan. Now that she's gotten what she wanted, she will not bother me anymore." Everly frowned. "You can't be sure. Liv, it's better to stay alert. Keep an eye on the people around you. The human character can be worse than demons and ghouls. Even if something looks improbable, it could well be the result of a deliberate plan. You shouldn't write it off as a coincidence." Olivia stared into the scenery afar and mumbled, "If someone's behind all these, that would be horrifying. How much effort?" The long overdue class gathering was merry. Everly was a social butterfly. She managed to make conversations with almost anyone at the event. The attendees were more shocked to see Olivia. A lot of her classmates went up to her and asked, "Olivia, I heard you're married. Why didn't you invite us to your Are We Not Good Enough for You?" Wedding? Before Olivia could say a word, a woman interjected with a shrill voice, "It's not that we're not good enough for her. It's the other way around, isn't it? She probably hid from us because her family went bankrupt." The woman was Callista Davies, who saw Olivia as her archenemy. Back in the day, the Davieses were not as wealthy as the Fordhams. So Callista always ranked second to Olivia in whatever she did. She should have been the wealthy, popular girl in school, but her spark went out when she was next to Olivia. That was the reason behind her vengeful attitude. Now that the Fordhams went bankrupt, Callista would not miss the opportunity to humiliate Olivia. As the class president, Calvin Atkins immediately came up to mediate. "Callista, that's a bit harsh. Everyone goes through ups and downs in life. There's no need to rub salt into the wound. It's been a while since we met up. Let's not spoil the fun." Callista rolled her eyes at Calvin, but out of respect for him, she dropped the topic. "Fine, I'll drop it. But isn't it kind of shameless of her to skip all our gatherings over the years only to show up now for a share of the pie?" "What share? I thought this was a classmate gathering." Olivia looked confused. "Are you faking it, or do you really not know? Everyone came to this event to get in on the Oakland Hospital project." The remark made Olivia feel conscious about her wasted days, shut away from the world. She seemed ignorant of the happenings around her. Calvin kindly explained, "The Oakland Hospital is the biggest project in recent years. It's a $3.5 billion investment." Callista scoffed. "The mission of the Oakland Hospital is to be a world-class hospital. It will hire quality staff and set up top-notch facilities. Of course, the pay is better than the average hospital in the country. And our dear class president is nice enough to introduce this opportunity to his old classmates." The other classmates were discussing the new hospital with excitement. If Oakland Hospital hired them, they'd earn 3 times their current pay. But the interview criteria were stringent. It'd help a candidate to have connections within the hospital. Olivia had a better idea of the situation after hearing the explanation. Calvin came from a prestigious family of doctors. And she bet that he had a huge share in the new hospital. Perhaps, the gathering wasn't what it appeared on the surface. It was just a front to scout for talents. After all, their graduating class was top of their cohort and full of talented students. Olivia guessed that Everly was too preoccupied with the breakup to fully grasp the nature of the gathering before dragging her along. Unlike Olivia, Everly was deep in conversation. She was advertising the properties she was selling. Olivia felt awkward in the social situation. Thankfully, Calvin was caring and inquired about her life without looking down on her. "Olivia, if you're interested, the Oakland Hospital will always welcome a genius like you." She flashed a defeated smile. "Calvin, you must be kidding. I'm just a dropout." Calvin seemed confused. "No. You were on leave from school. But you received your proof of graduation and degree certificate." It was her turn to be surprised. "Calvin, you must be confused. That's impossible. I was the one who distributed the proof of graduation. Your family accepted it on your behalf. Did you not receive it?" It didn't take long for Olivia to understand that Ethan must have pulled some strings. He must have taken her proof of graduation on her behalf. At that time, a pregnant Olivia was battling a marriage that went downhill. She brushed off the situation. She assumed that Ethan did not inform her of the proof of graduation. It wasn't a big deal to him. She smiled at Calvin. "Yeah, I received it. We haven't heard from you in 2 years. Were you furthering your studies elsewhere? And I heard about your family's situation. Look, we are old mates from college. If you need help, don't hesitate to get in touch with me at any time. I'd be honored to have you join us at the Oakland hospital." In their eyes, she remained the brightest star in the sky. She recalled her miserable and fruitless life in the last few years and finally understood the gravity of her mistake. "I'm sorry. I do not have plans to do so. I shouldn't be at today's event." Callista gloated. "I heard you got married. Are you a housewife, by any chance? If so, you're really out of place in this event. You wouldn't want to disgrace the VIPs." Calvin shot her a disapproving look. Since the Davises were reliant on the Atkinses, Callista had to keep her manners in check. Unlike her, Calvin acted gentlemanly toward others. "That's fine. We haven't seen each other in a while anyway. Since we're in the same industry, we might end up working together. I invited some medical experts to this event along with our classmates. Olivia, please don't feel that you're out of place." He added, "Just think of it as expanding your social circle." Olivia could not possibly excuse herself after Calvin attempted to keep her around. The other classmates were cool with Olivia. They enthusiastically chatted with her. In her classmates, she saw the good old college days when they confidently engaged in lively academic discussions. She stared into her hands, feeling disappointed at how she had turned so boring. Her marriage only brought her pain. From the conversations around her, she learned that the founder of the hospital would attend the event as well. "I heard that the Miller Group bid for the Oakland Hospital project because the president wanted to make his fiancée happy. Mr. Miller has a reputation for being heartless. I never thought he was such a romantic. He even named a hospital wing after his fiancée." Olivia looked shaken after learning about that, but she inquired with a sliver of hope, "Mr. Miller? Which one?" "Oh, Olivia, you can't be that out of the loop. Ethan Miller is the only Mr. Miller in Aldenvine with pockets deep enough to invest billions in the hospital." Nobody noticed that her face paled as she clutched the hem of her top tightly. She had once vowed to build a mega hospital to benefit more patients. Ethan took her idea and put it into action without her knowing, but one thing especially stood out to her: he named a hospital wing after Marina. How ironic was that? She stood up in a hurry and accidentally tugged on the tablecloth. The decanted red wine toppled over and spilled all over her outfit, but she had no time to clean the mess. "Calvin, something came up. I have to go now." Calvin immediately helped to wipe the stains with some napkins. At that moment, the door flung open. Ethan and Marina entered. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates. Link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.